Hello, my name is Amber and welcome to my creative space. Today I have solved a mystery. I'm so excited. I hope I can bring you along on this adventure of solving this mystery. So, a while back I was working on my sampler blanket and I ran across a video that had a beautiful thumbnail, which I'll put here, her picture. And of course, it immediately intrigued me and I got so excited about it and I wanted to do it. And I followed her tutorial and she even gave a written chart afterwards to follow through. And this was my result, which as you can see, this is my result. And it's not swirly. It's just some diagonals. I really was intrigued by the best I can describe it is like more of a DNA pattern. It's a swirling pattern. So here we're going to put that side by side. There's her picture and here's my sample. And I was sorely disappointed. But I kept that thumbnail picture on my phone, wanting to eventually find the actual pattern or figure out the actual pattern. So not too long ago, I started playing around. I was like, I'm sure I can just look at the picture and figure it out. And this is one of my attempts at figuring it out. You can see I do have some swirling going on, but I was having problems because I was not able to maintain the stitch count through across. And it wasn't looking exactly right because here I was using a full stitch and it just wasn't looking the same. Down here it looks pretty consistent, but then once I start doing the full stitch and then my stitch counts start doing weird things, I was interested in what I was seeing, but I knew I hadn't actually found the pattern yet. So not so long ago, I once again was thinking about this pattern, thinking about the picture, and I decided to do a Google search using the picture. And I came across this picture that was obviously a part of a tutorial somewhere, and I was like, wow, that looks really familiar. And I clicked on the tutorial, and sure enough, I came across it was an excerpt of a larger pattern. So I will definitely link this tutorial and link the pattern below. So if you're interested in finding out the full pattern. But following that tutorial from the website, I created this next swatch. Now, I didn't follow it exactly because I didn't put the decorative eyelet edging on it, but that looks distinctly like the thumbnail picture. So here's mine, and I'll put the thumbnail picture once again beside it. Now, one thing I did run across was I am left-handed, so patterns tend to turn out backwards for me. So I went ahead and flipped the thumbnail picture, which I'll do right now for you. And wow, that looks the same. And I'm so excited that I actually found the pattern for this thumbnail. So I will link it below. The pattern is from, like I said, it's an excerpt from a larger pattern that you can buy from Interweave, and I believe it was first published as a cardigan pattern in one of their magazines, and then this tutorial was written up to show you how to do just the repeating stitches. And what enabled me to find it was starting to describe it as a mock cable, because it's not a cable weave, because you don't use the needle and turn stitches and everything like you do with actual cable stitches, which I do not enjoy doing at all. But looking up mock cable with Tunisian and the aid of that picture from the thumbnail got me to this point. So I was so excited to find that. So I have officially found the pattern that goes with that thumbnail. And it is so satisfying to find that. Now, once I found the pattern, I started playing around with it because it's simply, I want to say, it's a 6-row repeat where you're taking your stitches to the one side, and then it has a 3-row 3 rows of just simple stitches and then another 6-row repeat. And by doing that, you get the pattern that they're showing in that picture. So I took that 6-row repeat and started playing around with it. Well, the first thing I did, rather than just playing around with it, was I made a proper sample with the decorative edging. And with this yarn, it doesn't show up as nicely as it does with this. I'm not sure why. But this has the eyelet edging on it on either side, and it has the swirl pattern. But I took that, and I started playing around with it. And here, let's see. Just need to find my front and back. So here we have the 6-row repeat, and rather than having a gap and repeating it again, I was like, I want to have it going back and forth. And so I reversed the pattern and did the pattern in reverse. And so if you do that, then you get this swirl like this, and then you start getting these, it's not a ruffle, it's a swelling. I don't know, but your edges aren't straight anymore. They start doing this sort of pattern. And I really wish it did the same thing over here to the same extent, but it doesn't seem to do that. But I think that that is quite a lovely pattern using that 6 stitches. You just, reverse it rather than left to right, you do it right to left. And I think it works out really well. And even though it's cinching in these areas, you are maintaining the same stitch count. So I thought that was quite intriguing. And this made me go, well, what if you took this and you repeated the pattern even more and just flipped it over this way? And what would happen if you did a 4? If that makes any sense. I don't know if I'm making any sense at all. So my next experiment was this one. I'm trying to see, is this? That's the back. So here you can see the swirling that I had created here with this. And then I flipped it over, and so now you'll start seeing these sort of oval shapes emerging. It gets a little bit weird here, and you develop a little eyelet hole when you're trying to work over that area. But I think that that is a very interesting pattern as well. And put that into a larger piece of fabric and having that go up and down. Once again, you get the little swelling on the edges here and here. But I'd be curious to see what that looked like if you repeat it multiple times this way and just extend the pattern and see what you could come up with. But that was very intriguing, all as a result of a Google image search, plus the term mock cable. So you start with this, and I ended up with this one. But this was really a fun exploration of what you can do with some repeating patterns and what you can develop. I really think this would be really lovely, like as done up in a thicker yarn, maybe as like a ear warmer for the fall and winter. And in the process of searching for this pattern, I did come across another one that has a similar principle. And I just decided to go ahead and work it up and sample it and see what I thought of it. And this one, if you can see it, has these swirls like this. It's all one-sided. It's not a two-sided swirl. And if you start doing it more of this orientation, you can kind of see maybe like waves or fans. And this is interesting because this, if I remember correctly, your extra stitches are all consistently down on this row, and then you're moving your stitch just by itself up here. Whereas the way this works is your extra stitch follows. It's not in a consistent place. It's following along with your moving decrease. And it creates eyelets over here on this side. So you have your decreases here, your two lines that are consistently just moving over, and then you have your increases over here that have eyelets involved. Whereas this, it's actually a simpler pattern to remember and do, because all of your increases stay the same on this edge, and it's just your decreases that are changing their position throughout the fabric. But I thought this was very intriguing too. I really think that her picture and her thumbnail shows this pattern a lot better. In fact, I'll put it up here. You can see side by side the two pictures. It really tells you that there is quite the art in taking pictures for thumbnails and taking pictures of patterns to show people what they look like. The reason I had actually switched over to this yarn for these samples was I thought it was much similar to that original tutorial that I had found, and I thought it might show the pattern better. But out of all of them, I think this yarn actually displayed it the best. So thank you for joining me for this geeking out session over patterns and all the possibilities that can come from it once you actually find the pattern. So like I said, I'll definitely link below the written tutorial that I found. That was the excerpt from that pattern that you can buy for the cardigan, as well as this pattern for, as well as the pattern for this one that's all like a shell or wave sort of thing. But it really gets me very interested in lace work or filet work, or just working with eyelets to make different patterns, and just working with decreases and increases to just create different patterns in fabric, and just all the possibilities. You know, I'm just thinking about all the different shapes you possibly do. So far, these are, you know, diagonal lines, but then they're giving you the impression of circles. But it just makes me wonder, can you do circles? It's exciting to think about all the different possibilities that can come from these simple techniques. I think also I found these patterns easier to do because I've been working on the feather capelet I've been working on by Yarn Andy, and that's consistently using yarn overs and decreases and increases in a very consistent way to make a consistent pattern, and you're constantly manipulating those stitches to make the pattern that you want. And she goes so far as using the short rows, so she can change the width of the fabric and the shape of the fabric at the end with full stitches to increase and then two togethers to decrease to make the end of the feather. So even though she considers that an introductory pattern, it has definitely been enjoyable, and just once again opening the door towards the idea of lace work and all the possibilities that are out there. That it's truly endless, and there's always something more to learn. So I hope you enjoyed this discovery as much as I did, and I would love to hear in the comments what you're working on, and if there's any mysteries you're working on trying to solve. If there's patterns or pictures you run across and go, that's so beautiful, but I have no idea how to do it, you know, I'd highly recommend trying a Google image search, because that was the key, along with the idea of it's a mock cable stitch. And those words and that picture was what led to finding the answer. So until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day, and feel free to like and subscribe. Bye.